For the news review, we're joined by Executive Director of the Parliamentary Network Africa, Sami Obeng. He is our guest. Just so you know, the news review on the AM show is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Now, what are we offering you? Free prostate screening, free female fertility screening as well. You can locate us in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi in Kronumabwehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex in Takrade, Anaji Estates in Tema Community 22, in Techima and Hansua, and in Esiama in Zema. You can also reach us on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. On that note, we get to Sami Obeng, Executive Director, Parliamentary Network Africa. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ben.
Good to have you join the conversation. I want us to start from this interesting point. Listening to the BBC coming to work this morning, you wouldn't believe what I stumbled upon. Of course, very negative about Ghana. It has to do with, I'm sure you've heard of that story about a lady and her sugar daddy, so to speak, one Nemako. Have you followed that story?
Yes.
So that was what they were discussing, and Lydia Forson, and I don't know whether the other person was Yvonne Nelson or something, but they were, reflecting upon it, sugar daddyism, the harsh economic situation that sometimes forces young women or girls to get into some of these relationships. We know for a fact, for example, that in certain parts of the country, there are teens who sometimes end up, because they don't have food, no access to education, nothing, they end up being exploited by some of these much older predators. It left a sour taste in my mouth because we know that is part of our reality. But what is your reflection on that, and what can be done to sanitize our system, even before we get into the papers?
Well, I mean, on the bit about the drivers, the kinds of things that move people into situations where certainly they must find avenues for support, to be able to ensure that their livelihoods are going on. Certainly, it's a big issue, and it's not only about the young girls. It's about young boys who are given to forced slavery. It's about by forced marriages. It's about all of these things, and it is really, really worrying. Something that needs to be checked. But poverty and inequality is a contributing factor to.
We seem momentarily to have lost Sami Obeng. I'll just try to buy some time, let him come back and conclude his thoughts on that. But definitely poverty, inequality, like he was mentioning, factors in this entire situation we find ourselves. And I don't want to go to some of what I saw, purportedly encounters or exchanges on WhatsApp with the two. I mean, sometimes we talk about these matters, yes, they come into the open, but still we must find a way of respecting the privacy of some of these other parties. If this hadn't come up, the lawsuit, we probably wouldn't be going into that issue. But what are the broader realities when it comes to this and its pervasiveness in our system? Those are the things we ought to be looking at. And how much does poverty, how much does inequality feed into the situation? If there's love in there and two people, like we would often see in the West, lady 20-something-year-old. I think it's same with the Titanic actor. I just forget his name. So popular, yet I've forgotten. Leonardo DiCaprio and his wife. The age gap, some of them 3 decades, 4 decades, and more. If the love is there, like we saw with Celine Dion and her husband as well, fine. But if it's just something else because these young girls can get access, a car, maybe a good place for accommodation, a stipend and other perks, then it becomes problematic. You were making a point, Sami Obeng.
Yes, I think I lost my connection momentarily. So
Right.
poverty, inequality, some of these things are real drivers for pushing people into all manner of things that they would ordinarily not want to do. I think that, just as has been said on various platforms, we need to be run a country that is gradually moving towards a point where, people know that when I complete school, I can get a decent job. If I learn a trade, I can be able to be, okay with the kind of thing that I'll be able to do with it, so that people can move towards the level of, thinking around self-sustainability and how they can be able to help themselves. These things, these drivers, inequality, very, very huge. And sometimes when we discuss some of these topics, we discuss them without going to these root sources of inequality and poverty. And of course, those are big topics that certainly your news review segment will not be meat for discussing all of those big topics, especially for somebody coming from civil society. These are topics we are really, really passionate about. So those are the angles that I just want to bring to this particular discussion this morning.
Right, let's get into the papers now. And the Daily Graphic, the first story that will hit you there. Achu, Christian Achu, among earthquake victims in Turkey, which is what Turkey now for a while has decided to be called. Turkey. That story is on page 13, and there's been a lot of he's been rescued, he's not been rescued. We heard from very prominent news portals that he had been taken out of the rubble with a leg injury. Then there was supposedly another bit saying that a co-player of his in his team said some had been brought out, but not Achu. We'll find out what the take of the Daily Graphic is. But it also says illegal miners block Birim River, destroy hectares of farmland. New property rate rollout. GRA MMDA's target 1.77 billion Ghana cedis. I just had to make this point this morning, even as I gear up to get into some of these stories. The taxes on some products in our country and the entire system, customs and all of that. Today I'll end up with customs because of something I got, okay? It comes, and I'm not going to mention the outfit that brought it into the country, but the customs charges, tax component, everything on it is about half the value of that little item. And I'm asking myself, what the heck is going on? I mean, and today, after the show, I'll be going to that outfit. I just don't want to mention names for the respect of certain brands. But how? What are we doing? And these taxes and everything that is going in, what do we even see them being done? I mean, do we see being done with them? I get exasperated sometimes. If there were an issue right now, right here on my block, and we needed the fire service, maybe through no fault of theirs, logistical, human resource and all of that, it would probably take quite a while. If you ever called the police at midnight asking for assistance, you probably might hear, we need this and we need that. I mean, it's getting infuriating. Yet we are charged so bloody much in this country. Everywhere. Makes no sense to me. And if the leaders are listening, that's why you have to fix the country. DDEP ends today. Debt exchange will bring economic stability, that's according to Oforiatta, and provide opportunities for growing population, former President Obasanjo to African leaders. Let's start with the story about Christian Achu. I'll ignore the one about the GRA for now and get into the story about Christian Achu. I'll get into the GRA story later. So the Ghana and the football fraternity worldwide are waiting anxiously to hear news about Christian Achu as rescuers in Turkey continue their careful search to rescue hundreds of people trapped in the rubble following a powerful earthquake that hit the country and Syria at dawn yesterday. The earthquake, measuring 7.8 on the Richter scale, has so far claimed 2,300 lives, with hundreds, including Ghanaian international football star Achu, still missing, with efforts being made to rescue them. The 31-year-old Ghana international, who currently plays his football with Turkish Super League side Hatayspor, was said to be missing after some of his teammates and members of the club's technical staff were reportedly pulled from the rubble in the rescue mission in Antalya, where the club is based. Achu came off the bench and scored deep into stoppage time last Sunday to secure a 1-0 win over Kasimpasa in their home game. Imagine that, Sami Obeng, you come off the bench, net a goal. I'm sure he must have been elated, and next thing you know, this happens and you are under rubble. I've been thinking, I actually prayed for Achu yesterday because at 31, I mean, forget whether that's his real age or football age. At 31, I have seen very young people sometimes go through some traumatic incidents, and I don't even want to think that would happen. Where our hearts and minds are with him. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
Very, very, very nervy moments they were yesterday. We still are nervy as a people. I mean, if you follow social media, you clearly will see how Ghanaians, were very, very worried. It was not surprising then that we had to have, various Ghanaian leaders, people from all walks of life, expressing our wishes, praying for our children, what have you. I mean, young man plays, one day, the next day, under rubble. We are all nervy about whether he's around or not. Especially for somebody also who plays a football career, where he needs all of his limbs intact, and so to be found on a rubble and the consequences that could come with it are really, really dire. I think that we all really, really have a responsibility to pray for our brother. We are hoping that the Almighty God himself would bring him out unscathed, so that he would be able to continue with his trade, because this promising career, cannot be cut short, because of a situation like this. But not only him, we are praying for the people of Turkey and Syria, even in these very, very difficult moments.
And indeed, that is the situation. I just love the passion whenever he's played for the Black Stars, the passion. Some of these people, you see them and you see they are committed to the cause. There was that infamous incident in 2015 about the money being flown and all of that. But you look at some of these players and the way they're passionate about what they do, you cannot but love them. And it's really sad that this has happened, but we're still with him in prayer, and we pray for the very best for him. But then new property rate rollout, GRA MMDA's target 1.77 billion Ghana cedis, and the Ghana Revenue Authority, in collaboration with the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development and the Lands Commission, has collected data required to bill all property in the country. The list and details of more than 8.87 million properties codified into the Unified Common Property Rate Platform, also known as myassembly.gov.gh, to enable property owners to verify their rates and pay same come with their valuations, owners, and other details. However, 76 metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies have provided the rates or levies for the various properties, that is, imposts, which will form the basis for the first phase of the end-to-end district revenue collection and administration platform, designed to enhance the collection of and accounting for property rates. So, Reverend Dr. Usuamu has said the new arrangement would not allow the use of cash, and that ratepayers were required to pay via mobile money or electronic cards. Like I was sharing earlier, Sammy, I'm getting tired of hearing of tax initiatives when there is no commensurable, visible impact of our taxes. As a young person, I go out there and see how young people react. Young people who cannot afford one square meal, one proper meal a day. Young people who, we have the story out there about one Leonard. I think he was at the St. Francis Xavier Seminary. I took time to watch the video yesterday. I nearly wept. Brilliant guy, talking even about the inadequacies of our pi calculation, and you can tell he is exceedingly brilliant. He suffers bipolar disorder, and I pray and hope, even as I use this platform, that some people who are listening to me, if you've not seen the video, if you can assist Leonard, it would be fantastic. You can see the squalor, the poverty in which he's grown, and then when his father passed, a teacher, it became even worse. We have all of these characters in here. Who knows the sort of great scientist Leonard could have become, and maybe still could become. Yet look at his circumstances. And we are here always collecting taxes kicking the Ghanaian left, right, center. I'm not saying it's wrong to collect taxes or pay taxes. In other jurisdictions, we pay them and see the benefits. Here, you pay them and you still have the worst roads anywhere. Sammy, over to you. You would have to unmute, Sammy Obeng. I think you've muted yourself.
These things are really stressful, you know, and you are not alone in expressing such frustration about some of these taxations that gets taken and then, you know, things are not as good. I was expressing to some of my colleagues a few days back about how I watch my pay slip month after month, you know, look at how much goes in by way of PAYE, look at the roads that leads to my workplace from my home, look at how much traffic I'll have to endure on my stretch just because that particular road has been on the radar for many, many years and nobody is actually attending to it. Look at the bits and pieces of potholes on that particular road that even, you know, affects the traffic situation and all of that. And then you feel very much discouraged. However, we have a responsibility as a people to continue to pay taxes, but we also have a responsibility or a duty to call duty bearers, you know, to do better with the resources that we provide for them. And that is the reason why when they mess up our economies, that is the reason why when they mismanage our resources, that is the reason why when they fail in their endeavor to protect the public purse that has been entrusted to them, we must call them out. And it must not be seen as disrespect or must not be seen as being anti-government, because people are going through a lot to be able to provide these things. On a bit about property rates, long overdue. Successive periods have not seen to ensuring that these monies are collected efficiently. Hopefully, this process will see to some efficiency. But what's the level of education that people are being given on this, on the payments, on the valuation, on who is supposed to be doing the payments and what have you? And then, like you rightly put it, what will we be seeing beyond payment of these property rates as the development that we get to see in our communities, you know, because we pay some of these rates? Will they be going back into funding luxurious living of other people while other people, you know, wobble in poverty? That should not be the case at all.
Have you taken a good look recently? Maybe you ate somewhere, purchased something. Do you look at the tax and levy component?
Huge. You know, I mean,
it's mind-boggling.
Huge.
And I ask myself, I'm paying all of this, and this is the words that are coming to me this morning. I cannot use on air, but this is what I get as a citizen of this land.
You know, very, very sad. And you see, whenever we speak about these matters, we are pointed to the fact that the other countries where we, you know, love to cite as examples have their people paying huge taxes. That's very much true. But they also have their people benefiting from a society that is using their taxes well, a society that cares for them, a society that you are rest assured that because you are a tax-paying citizen or your parents pay taxes or you are contributing to the development of the community, when something goes wrong with you, society would actually come to your aid through, you know, systems that have been put in place. And that is why we must be continuing calling people out when they decide to mess up with our economies.
Let's look at illegal miners blocking the Birim River. And illegal miners have restricted the free flow of the Birim River on the outskirts of Achim Abuabo to enable them carry out their outlawed activities. Imagine that. During a tour of the spot between Achim Wenchi in the Denchambua district and Odan, where the river course has been diverted and narrowed last Friday, it was clear that large tracts of land along the river had been destroyed by the illegal miners who were carrying out their activities, also known as galamsey, with impunity. The Daily Graphic team found that many cocoa and oil palm farms had been destroyed without giving any compensation to their owners. Although the team did not meet anyone on site, it saw some excavators, which according to a source had been abandoned while security personnel had demobilized others. When the Daily Graphic contacted the Odan Divisional Police Commander, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Reverend Samuel Nyameche Adani Ameyao, he confirmed the invasion of the area by illegal miners. You know what? I don't have anything to say about this, Sammy. Nothing surprises me anymore. And I have honestly come to the point where I see that any talk on Galamsey from this administration, from the president to everybody else, to the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Abu Jinapo, is mere talk. Because after 6 years, what I've seen is a clear deterioration. Nothing to write home about. Over to you.
The impunity with which some of these things are done leaves you with no reason but to think that, there is more to this than meets the eye. We're in a country where your water producing company tells you that, look, we are getting to the brink of having water issues, a very huge national security situation. You are in a country where agriculture is being affected. You are in a country where we are seeing signs of the effect of all of these very, very terrible things, and all we get is continuous lip service. All we get is people continuing to do these things with impunity, and you wonder whether our system is able to deal with grievous issues when they come about. Because look, if for some of these issues, which in my opinion we should be able to deal with them head on, because it does not take technology coming from the United States of America, or wherever, to deal with them, and we are unable to deal with them. I wonder what kind of things that we can legitimately, what kind of nation-wrecking issues that we can legitimately deal with when these things get to us. Rightly noted, these Galamsey matters, sometimes you wonder really, like the guys will say, whether Onupa Yesha, I mean,
penny of you penny nifi.
It's
Well, we'll do our bit and leave the rest to God. Domestic debt exchange program ends today. Debt exchange will bring economic stability. That's according to Oforieta. Maybe some quick thoughts on the DDEP, and then we can say goodbye to the Daily Graphic newspaper. But maybe before you come through with your response, let me just add. On the back page, fire destroys makeshift homes, shops at Ashaiman, and Yendi Municipal Hospital gets trauma center. Yes, your take, Sammy, on the DDEP.
Well, I mean, I think that it is one of the issues that had been spoken about over and over. I really do not think that, especially on a channel like yours, where all the experts, where all the coalitions that are built up have come to speak about the subject matter. I really think that, in all of this, if there's one lesson that we must all learn, is that our people deserve better. And the terrible things we do along the way, comes back to haunt us. And so as citizens, as government, as leaders, as elected representatives, we must be minded when the experts continuously speak to us about how things are going, what is not going right. And we must not allow politics all the time to hold sway when really common sense and, the interest of the people must be the things holding sway. And I really wish that our country will get out quickly, from this messy situation we find ourselves in. Government tells us that if something is not done urgently,
right.
I read in the news, within this quarter, things will come crashing on us. I hope we never get there, because if it crashes on all of us as a people. But I just, hope and pray that we do not find ourselves in such situation where merely because people fail to listen brings everybody, to a situation where we all have to struggle and suffer. I mean, it's not proper.
I'll be going a bit quickly so that in the next 5 to 6 minutes we can wrap with the papers that we have. The Daily Guide says, rebel, quote, NDC MP's rubbish mosquito meeting, but we know that the NDC has found its smoothness level, or its own level, after some meetings. I saw a post by Muntaka on meeting the former president and all of that. And as of now, it would appear that the cracks and crevices have been patched up, but will that be enough? No malice in beige license revocation, that's according to a witness. 5 injured in military Bibiani youth clash. I'm sure you followed that. Lawyer ditches coup plotter, and Christian Achu missing in Turkey earthquake. But the latest we have, actually you can check out the story on myjoyonline.com. Turkish media confirm he's been found, and reports from Turkey reveal Hatayspor and former Black Stars winger Christian Achu has been pulled from the wreckage after an earthquake hit the Western Asian country. Now, there's a post by one Yagis Sabun Çorlu. Pardon my murdering his name. I don't speak Turkish. And the translation of what he writes is Christian Achu has been pulled from the wreckage alive. And the club's sporting director is reportedly still unaccounted for. It was the two of them, and now apparently he has been found. My hope, sincerely, is that indeed everything is well, and we can take it from there. Quick reactions, though, on the Bibiani and the Bibiani issue with the youth and the military clashing. Any quick thoughts?
Well, yet again, we come to a point where we're having one too many of these instances of clashes between, youth groups and security officials. I think on this platform a couple months ago we discussed a few other instances, that had come up, and it is becoming worrying. I think that when you have one too many of such examples, really the security services, traditional authorities, leaders, we must be teaming up to find ways to, educate each other on how to deal with some of these things without, such injuries, sometimes leading to deaths, which are needless and could have been avoided.
Let's look at graphic business now. DD program, banks' profitability to suffer again. Deal or no deal? $3 billion IMF conundrum. And Ghana's energy security threat. Is gold for oil the solution? Let's get into the stories, starting with the DDE program and banks' profitability to suffer. So, players in the financial service sector have said the profitability of banks who sign on to the government's DDEP will severely contract this year. According to them, the impact of the introduction of mark-to-market or market-to-market, a prelude to the DDEP, had already dealt severe damage or done severe damage to their books. So they fear a worsened situation this year once banks sign on to the program. There also is deal or no deal, a $3 billion IMF conundrum. And graphic business, since you're tied to the graphic group, I don't see why you're spelling conundrum with 3 N's. So C-O-N-N instead of C-O-N-U-N-D-R-U-M. But the story says, government is inching closer to securing a $3 billion budgetary support from the IMF following a breakthrough in negotiations with major key stakeholders affected by government's DDEP. And you put major and key together, so which one? The immediate question for many economic watchers is that it does not look like there will be a deal soon, as was expected. Pardon my being naughty this morning. I get like this sometimes when I read the papers and see things that I hope not to see. And Ghana's energy security threat. Is gold for oil the solution? Any quick thoughts on these three? So the first two tied together, going back to the DDEP, and then gold for oil. Any thoughts on what you've seen so far? The last we heard, we had got the oil from Russia, and we were saying now that we expended about $40 million, $41 million, thereabouts, to get the shipment and not gold. Quick reflections?
Well, quick ones on these, because I really wanted to say a bit about the NDC minority bits. Obviously, I'm certainly not going to leave the set without talking about that. Although now I am also minded about whether my English will be corrected. Having said that, though, I need to. I think that's on the debt exchange bit. For me, one of the biggest challenges or the biggest groups that I'm expecting to be affected hugely are banks, those in the financial sector and what have you. I have an example. There's this gentleman who's been discussing with me the need to join their insurance package, for a couple of months now. And now I don't feel encouraged to even have that discussion with him because, look, see what's happening with our financial sector. All of these things started with Ponzi schemes, and then it went to bank closures, and then we are having this situation and all of that. So that a very fantastic financial market that we have built, banks, investments, call for people to be able to put monies aside and save and all of that, are just coming down crumbling, and people are not going to be interested in these matters anymore. And I link this to the gold for oil, situation, that, we've had, experts, people in civil society, people in academia and all of that, making suggestions and contributions on how some of these things, the transparency of it, but even ways through which some of these things can be done better. If there is anything to learn from all that we are going through as a country, it is to the effect that when these things are being done, please listen to the people that you lead and serve, so that we can all curate, co-create, the kinds of solutions that we need, so
Right.
that it will not be the kinds of solutions that will come crashing at us.
The final newspaper, let's avoid further strain on the economy. Oforiatta rallies all bondholders to join the DDEP. Mr. Finance Minister, let's avoid further strain on the economy. Well, when we were borrowing, did we know how we were straining our economy? I mean, I'm becoming inured to this entire situation. When you call people to tighten their belts, how much have you tightened your belt? Anyway, President Akufo-Addo approves NHIA free elderly care policy in Serewa to support 2,500 rice, soya, and rice farmers. And Dr. J.B. Dankwa's legacy on constitutional growth and development continues. That's the story there. But let's wrap. The Daily Statesman says, Shraj exonerates Deputy Gender Minister. Kwabena Japan calls for battle of ideas, not insults. Ghana is global trade hub. U.S. explores rebound deal with POD. And Economy Times, government misses fiscal deficit target. And the government has missed its fiscal deficit target of 6.7% of GDP as at the end of November 2022. Banks make losses in 2022, and IMF bailout to be ready before end of first quarter. Any quick reflections as we wrap?
Yeah, just a quick one. Maybe let me just touch. You mentioned the rice bit, a matter that I am actually very interested in. Last week, I was part of the National Rice Fair that happened in Wale Wale, and I'm particularly interested because of the potential that the rice economy, sector, the value chain holds for the economy, for some of these challenges that we are going through with our foreign exchange, because we send so much money out of the country to import rice, to employment, to women who are in the agriculture sector and what have you. And so I really think that, this whole rice conversation should be given a lot more prominence in our media discussions within the agricultural sector. I've not read the full details of the reasoning that Shraj gave for exonerating the deputy minister, so I may not want to comment on that immediately. But like I said from the very beginning, I think that on the NDC matter, the minority, matter, if I may touch quickly on that particular one, it is quite interesting that they've been able to in-house, patch things up. I mean, you use the word patch up, and I think it's the right word, that's right terminology you used for that, because, as to whether it is just a patch up or it's it's been sown, it lives to be seen. But I think that parties in parliament, especially for a parliament that has such tight numbers, must be minded about the fact that every little error, the kinds of things they do, can come back to haunt them. And so they must be more, we must move away from, ways that things have been done over the years, and we feel that that is the way to go because it's been done over the years. Society is dynamic, things are moving, parliament is different. And as parliament resumes today, I wish the members of parliament the very best. I hope that they are coming for the second half of their tenure with the people of Ghana in mind. I must say that members of parliament have over the years contributed to this kind of situation we have with our economy, because sometimes the kinds of approvals they make, the kinds of due diligence they do for the loans that they allow government to take. This time around, I think the lesson here is that we all must play our role so that we don't end up in a ditch like we have found ourselves now.
Thank you so much, Samuel Bing, for joining us this morning for breakfast, this review, and we wish you the best of the day. He is Executive Director, Parliamentary Network Africa. And that's how we cap off the news review. Stay with us because up next we tell you the latest in sports. Do stay.